Welcome to Black, Red, and Blue Fancast. I'm AJ, and I'm joined with Steve today. Man, we got a game to talk about today. Unfortunately,
what game happened?
There was some game, right? And it was another draw. Oh my.
We could win some. Draws are fun. I didn't know we could do this so often. Ted Lasso would have pooped his pants at this point if that happened his first season.
I did see a quote, though, and it basically said that if you're not going to win, make sure you don't lose.
Apparently, we're tied for first with the fewest losses in the league, which is great. We only have one loss, so hang your hat on that one, I guess, Governor.
A point is a point, especially on the road. If this was last year, if this is next year, and I told you that every road game that you had, if you were guaranteed a point, you'd be thrilled, right? I think what we need to do is just make sure that we do something to actually win. Now, gut reaction.
That'd be good.
After the game, you're sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, another draw. What were you thinking in that moment? How did you feel? Were you kind of excited about that? Or were you disappointed?
Not so much disappointed, but yep, it happened. Watching that game, listening to the end of the game, it just, nothing ever built. And, I didn't feel like we got out of there lucky. I also didn't feel like that we deserved the win. I don't know. We're two mid-table teams, mid-tabling. That's just kind of where it was for me. What about you?
That's perfect description. Well, you actually brought up something before we started recording, right? And that they mentioned on the telecast, which was that Houston actually has good passing. And when I heard that, I was thinking that's actually going to be our Achilles heel. Why? What do we thrive on? We thrive on chaos and when the other team makes mistakes. That's our MO. And if you have a team who has high accuracy and good possession, which they definitely did, there's no mistakes to be had. There's no chaos to be had. And if you really, I was thinking throughout the game, right? I love watching these games, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a snooze fest. And unfortunately, St. Louis will never thrive in a boring game. They want the game that all sorts of crap is happening. And if I think about it, I think that might be the reason why we just never really generated anything. I've always kind of said, what is our offense when does it look best? It's during the transition. You're all rushing towards the box. We don't carefully build up and get into the box. Even last year, a lot of our goals came off of things like set pieces. We didn't have a lot of that build up into the box, to be honest.
Oh, by the way, real quick before we move on. I went to the supporters party over at 9 Mile Garden, and it was put on by Santos, and it was amazing. It was such a cool environment. There was a march around like they do before home games. A ton of cool fans were out there. The Fandalorians were out selling these towels that were made by No Goal Patrol, and I had to buy this one because it's so cool. So it looks like the old Sherwin-Williams We Cover the Earth, and it's got Durkin. And at the bottom it says 70% of the world is covered by water. The other 30%, Chris Durkin. So we were watching the match, and I was having my daughter who plays soccer. She loves soccer. We were watching, and as we were a couple of plays, we were kind of crashing the box, heading down. I looked, and there were no less than 5 Dynamo players on that back line. They dropped everyone back. They were making sure we didn't have those wacky bust-in kind of passes. They didn't park the bus, but they were making sure we didn't really have those chances. And so when you look at some of those passes, one of the shots that we had, it actually bounced off a defender's foot. That was a really good shot, and just weren't able to generate anything because that team was pretty much giving up the offense in order to play strict defense. And what Houston is really, they are so good at passing. They're the best passing team in the league, but none of their passes almost never generate into shots. And our midfield was a really weak spot for us last night. And I saw that from Berkey to the attack, there were almost no passes that led to XP shots. Berkey had most of the good passes, and then it was to that our attack. Like our midfield was basically non-existent. So if you're not having it seems like we're stuck in this stupid time zone where we can't get out of our midfield is just suck without the Leuven. Like this is the same story over and over again. We don't have those strong passing midfielders to generate those pretty cool shots. Also, our corner, we didn't have a lot of corners last night, but if I remember right, one of the corners they didn't even bother shooting. They just passed it short and then shot around.
Right.
Like it's just not happening. So like we had nothing going on in the final third because there was nothing really happening being generated from that second third. And honestly, whatever was going on with Celio last night, I really feel like he let
I was
the
just
team
bringing that
down
up.
to the point where when the second half started, you and I texted and I was like, why is AZ in? And you said he's in for Celio. And to myself, I was going to listen to the post game conference because I wanted to know why. And, we discussed this, that Carnell clearly said it was a tactical decision to bring on AZ to sub out Celio. So like, that's pretty intense.
It was a good move.
That's kind of how I was seeing it.
It was. And that's the thing. Like during the first half, there was some really, really poor passes that just didn't really have a lot of heart to them. The pace wasn't there. And I think I texted you somewhere around probably, I don't know, 40th minute or something, 30th, something like that. And I was like, Celio is just not looking good today. Like this has got to be one of his worst games that we've seen from him. And it really showed. But I was actually really disappointed. How many times has Carnell actually made a substitution right after half? Like at the beginning of the half. I'm not talking about 65 minutes. Yeah, maybe he was a little sick or maybe he just wasn't performing. I mean, sometimes it happens, right? Like these guys are
human,
very, very well-tuned performers essentially. And it just 1% degradation of their performance makes all the difference. We watched the Kentucky Derby this past weekend, and you see that with the horses. I think what was it, Fierceness was the horse that was favored. Obviously he didn't make it, but they were kind of talking about how fast he was. But there's sometimes when they get him lined up in the cages, sometimes he's bucking and throwing around, and then he gets a bad start and it just isn't a good race for him. I mean, athletes are the exact same kind of way.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's just something that he did not come out of the gate very well. Klaus and Sam, like everybody wants to talk about this. I'm just going to throw it to you here, but Klaus did not look like the guy we wanted him to be.
He didn't take good shots. I feel like he was kind of pressing again, but like I also feel that it was a reflection on the men passing to him. And so if he's not getting good passes, he's not getting open, he's not able to generate good shots. I think the clearest indication of how the game was going to go was like that 19th minute or so when Celio had that amazing breakup and he had an open shot. He paused a little too long and then passed it to Klaus, and Klaus put up a bad shot. I have a feeling that got in Klaus's head probably, that like he's going to have to pick up the slack. Like Celio was probably kind of like projecting that this is how it was going to go. Like maybe his body language was off. Maybe his feet weren't moving as well as he wanted to. Like you said, maybe there was just something off. And it seemed like Santa just wasn't able to be that power generating DP that we've seen him be. I'm just not ready to jump on some of these anti-Klaus trains yet. Again, still just because he played the vast majority of the game when the person that some of the fans are wanting to replace him came on. Also, nothing was really generated from that.
We got to give him credit though. Sam Adeniran did do one thing that we criticized him very often for, and that was not passing. Like all he did was shoot. And even if it was a very poor shot and there was somebody wide open, he would always shoot. But this time he kind of did the Jamie Tart thing. He actually made the pass. The only unfortunate thing is, unlike Jamie Tart, Sam doesn't know how to pass. They were very poor passes. They didn't have pace to them. They just weren't really well done. But I think we got to at least give him that credit.
Yeah. I don't even think he had any shots on goal while he was in, but that was just like indicative of like the whole rest of the game where it's just like still nothing happened. Like he came kind of running on, and then one of our Facebook followers wanted us to discuss his body language. And I wasn't able to see most of the game that he came on yesterday, but like I have seen like he throws his arms up, he kind of shrugs his shoulders when a pass doesn't come his way or a shot isn't good, and he seems to have like this defeatist attitude. Now, like I said, I didn't see it yesterday where he was kind of making his redemption and redemption to the team. It was his home crowd. So were you able to see, did anything kind of bit of a step out with you, like his body language make you go, or like make you feel good about his body language?
I didn't really notice that as much as earlier than in the game. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but there was some kind of like little spat with Indy and Klaus. I believe it was Indy. And they were kind of arguing probably for a few minutes. Maybe there's like a little bit of spats going on. I don't know. It just didn't look professional.
Bit of a,
you want to fight the other team, not fight yourself. So right. I don't know if there was something that was going on and that was carry on with Dinnerin, or if that was just something separate. Obviously, Dinnerin, he had his family there. So maybe he was getting a little frustrated that he wasn't given the opportunity to show off, I guess you could say. And maybe he thought he should have started. Compared to what I saw with Klaus and Indy, I didn't really notice. I didn't really notice quite as much. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't really see anything too substantial.
Yeah, no. And that's good. I mean, I guess the best thing to say about a player's body language is if you don't notice it. And if we didn't notice it last night, that means he wasn't making himself the center of attention, which is great. Matt Baker was discussing his view on the differences between Klaus and Sam. And if we're going to play them opposite each other, the team has to have a bit of a different mindset when you play. So if we just plug and play Sam or Klaus, like it's not going to work. So if we're going to have Sam out there instead of Klaus, we have to have these players thinking differently. And I don't know how easy it's going to be to get a bunch of players to say, we're not going to pass this way, we got to pass this way, or we're not going to play up this way, we're going to play up this way because of a guy. So just being upset at the fact that Klaus didn't score in every single game this year, it's not great. I mentioned we would rather have Klaus as a DP than some of these other cats. Like Shaqiri in Chicago, I mentioned he sat yesterday. Klopp didn't even play him until he got in the last 25 minutes of the match, and he's one of the highest paid players in the league, and he's been completely useless this year. And Klaus isn't that. Klaus is an amazing player, and he's still doing really good. And, I don't think it's time to panic. I mentioned it in our last fan cast, and it still stands true. This time last year, through 10 matches, we had 19 points. Through 10 matches this year, we have 13 points. That's 6 points difference. If we win against Chicago next week, we're only one win away from where we were last year. And I know it's hard to think back last year, but in May, we had, I think, one win in the entire month of May last year. And we started this kind of rough spell we had. And this is right around the time we lost Klaus in Colorado last year. And we are playing differently. We've got a different makeup on our team, and we're still right there. Like the West is an amazing just jumble of like a rat king of all the teams together. And no one's there's only 2 teams that are broken out so far, but like the rest, we're just going to, I think we're right behind 5th place. We win next week and a couple of those teams ahead of us lose. We're jumping from 9th to 5th in 1 week. And that's pretty cool. So like, yeah, I mean, clean sheets are fun. Scoring will be fun, but it just hasn't happened right now. What are your thoughts on Berkey?
Perfect timing. I was just about to say this, is that as much as we were complaining about how our attacking third was, our defending third, it was great.
Yeah.
Right? Like you had said this earlier, that our defenders basically clogged up any of the shooting lanes. They did not give Houston much of a chance. The biggest exception to that, of course, is that Berkey save, which, holy crap. Now, remember, that save, right, had a lot of power behind it. And it was deflected by one of our own guys, and Berkey still saved it.
Yeah.
I mean, holy moly. Holy moly. This would have been a totally different game, and then people would be complaining that we went there without getting any points. Like, he literally, that one action was worth a point.
One thing that we should discuss real quick is that we tend to see Berkey frustrated at his defensive line. Whenever they're not playing perfectly, we see him out there barking, we see him out there yelling. He's very visceral, which is, I dig that as a leader. But he's also very protective of his line. And he was asked yesterday over and over again what he thinks about his line and the strikers. And what he mentioned was that in training, he's got his line playing angry. Like, if they score, or if they get a score against them in training, they're angry the whole rest of the training, and they carry that into the games. So we look at how like Mechanic started at the beginning of this year, where he was almost timid and getting ran over by Paintsville didn't help. But like, he is becoming more angry. He's becoming a more bigger of a pain. He kind of looks like a little baby Parker out there, which is awesome. Once Nilsson comes back, he's just going to be just right there. Hebert is amazing right now. Like, I can't believe I said that, but the words don't seem to form right in my mouth, but he's playing great. Now, he was asked yesterday about the offense, and he made it extremely clear. He's so frustrated. He's like, we need to score. And he commented that when in training, when the strikers don't score or they get stopped in the third, they're not playing angry. So like, read between the lines there. And as fans, that's what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to take every little bit and kind of stretch it out. To me, Berkey's calling the striker soft. That's the way it kind of plays out, where it's just like they're cool with failing. Berkey's not. I'm so damn glad we've got him locked up for a couple more years, because I would hate to have this guy leave this early, because we would just be trash. But like, it's so cool to see a player call out his teammates like that. And I'm hoping they hear it, and I'm hoping they take it seriously, because like, yeah, he made some amazing saves. By the way, the crossbar was also our friend last night. That was another shot that like could have wrecked our night. But like, Berkey, man, like, what else can we say about this cat, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is, right? It's kind of like poker. I've always kind of said that. You have your pocket aces, and you put yourself in a good place to win, but sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Fortunately, their pocket aces got cracked, and we didn't go down 1-0. Thank goodness, right?
Right.
Now, the other thing is the Klaus thing. Like, he had that, I don't want to say it was wide open, but it looked like his left leg collapsed, and then he basically sent the ball to the moon. I mean, to some extent, I think that was a little unlucky. I would probably say 9 out of 10 times he probably scores that, but sometimes it's not how the cookie crumbles, unfortunately.
How many shots do you think we had last night while you were watching the game? How many shots do you think we took? I don't know, I'll put you on the spot, but
I mean, what it felt like, I would say probably what it felt like was 8. That's what it felt like.
We had 18 shots. We had 18 shots, but we had 10 of those were off target, and only 3 of those were on target. We're like, we still had 18 shots. Like, we're still putting the ball near the net. Clark, for what we think about him for wasting time, he's still a really good goalie, and he made some pretty good saves too. So we're kind of running into a lot of teams with good goalies. Now, next week, Brady is also another excellent goalie. So we're going to have to get creative with our shots next week against Chicago. But like, Clark had some good saves too. I saw the stats that, let's see, for shots. Yeah. He had 5 blocked shots. Berkey had 4. So like, we are still putting them out there. So like, I don't know. I keep saying someone must have crossed a black cat, walked under a ladder, broke a mirror or something over there at City Park. Someone did something stupid. I don't know what the other bad luck things are, but like bit their thumb on a Sunday. I don't know what they did, but
that's why they had to replace the field. Didn't you know that? They had to remove the cursed soil. So we're gonna be able to.
You know what they didn't do? I bet they didn't turn some candle upside down when they put the original sod in. I don't know what saint you're supposed to do that to when you buy a house, but I hope they did it this time because we need some good mojo in there. So
Okay, you ready for it?
yeah,
Coach's game. Coach's game. So this is if we're going against nondescript opponent. What would you do differently? Would you stick with this lineup? Would you change it? Would you change our tactics a little bit? What would you be doing different?
Man, well, we haven't lost a game, not for a couple weeks. I would only change Nilsson, Blom, and Lubin. That's the only thing I would change right now. Those guys get their spots back as soon as they're healthy and as soon as they're available. Everything else I'm leaving the same. I want these guys to feel empowered to continue to gel. You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't think some of the subs that came on were, I mean, AZ is a great sub. That's great. I think that's where they belong. I think that these guys that are out there still need to prove their mettle, and they're getting there. And it's just, I think we just got to keep it going. I don't see Carnell changing for Chicago. Now they're a piss poor team. They're fewer in points than we are. They lost against New England. They're not a good team. I don't see why we change anything. I don't see Sam coming on. I don't see Sam starting. I don't see Klaus sitting. Now with us coming home. I mean, well, what about you? I mean, I love our lineup game we do. I love learning. I've learned so much from you about setting lineups and what they are, but like, honestly, I don't see why we would need to change right now. What are your thoughts?
100% agree with you, because we know that since we start doing the 4-2-3-1 with this current lineup, we've been a better team. I get that Houston was somewhat disappointing, and I get that there was just some bad mojo out there. But the realistic fact is individually, certain players weren't performing to where we wanted them. So like Celio, I felt like had a really poor game. Klaus overall had a poor game. But if these guys are just playing their normal game, this lineup is actually pretty darn good. We're still missing something, so hopefully the summer transfer window, we can get that 10 in here. Like India's done a better job than Jackson, but just not quite there, right? And hopefully we get, what's his name? Cedric, I believe it is. The guy that everybody's going on.
I'm not going to try to, the 96,
You guys know what I'm talking about, yeah. Hopefully we get this guy, right? Because that's our missing piece, right? When Leuven and Bloom come back, that's going to be awesome. Nilsson's right there. I don't think you should change anything. I think you should let these guys gel together. I think you should let them develop more chemistry. And then I think the things come from that, especially in the attacking third, right? Because what is the attacking third? Yeah, thank you. What is the attacking third?
Yeah.
Right? It's all about anticipating what's going to happen. When a striker makes a run, you have to anticipate the pass that's coming from the winger go in a certain direction. Like you have to just kind of know what your fellow athletes are going to end up doing. So I think we need to give them time and just keep running with this. Yeah, at least until if there should ever be a loss. But that's just me.
Yeah. This is another one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's not really broken.
Like you said, how far
again
the table are we? One win, and potentially we're up in 5th place with maybe a couple other losses.
Yeah. Easy. Yeah. Because we're at 13 and what's that math? 15 points and we're right there. Like it's just phenomenal. And I do think we're going to win. You know, I felt like a draw would have been smart money this week, but like we kind of got excited. Houston lost their main defender there with the red, and we were hot coming off of Kansas City. And I think 2-1, I heard 2-1, 3-0. That was kind of like heart kind of money, but like a draw would have been the smart plan. Is still on the road. Full on 3-1 win should be easily had against the Chicago team this year. I honestly feel that way. That's my prediction. 3-1. Put the Steve stamp on it. It's in the books. That's what I'm getting. What's your prediction then?
Well, I mean, after the Steve stamp, how could I go against anything but 3-1?
Kind of really can't. I mean, sacrilegious or something.
I'm gonna have to go with it. I'm gonna have to say Klaus gets one, Ciolito gets one, and then probably some surprise player. Maybe like Durkin or something. I'll go with that.
Okay. All right. I will say Klaus for the brace. That's my new favorite term right now. So Klaus is going to get 2, and then we'll give Ciolito the other one.
That's my
dog. So that's a cool one too. Far out, man. Man, I love talking soccer. I love it.
Well, is it soccer or is it football? That's a whole Football.
So real quick, we did answer some questions from the Facebook. If you're on Reddit and you have any questions, DM AJ here and he will get out to you. If you're on Facebook, hit us up there. Don't forget we have a voicemail because we're like almost boomers and we use voicemail for some reason still. 314-764-5130. If you have some thoughts that you just don't feel comfortable coming on and recording with us, leave us a voicemail. And we'll talk about it. Let us know. You'll find us at BRB Fancast on Facebook, on Instagram. Where else are we? Twitter. Yeah, Twitter. We go on there and we do the tweets. So find us on all those on the socials there and hit us up. And if you ever want to come and talk, we're here. This is a group project. We want more members, and we want, even if you want to come on, you have one burning little thing. You're like, God, I really want to talk about Pedro not being on the team. Like, fine, come on in. Talk about this boring ass Pedro guy. Come on in. We'll talk, and then you can tip out. Like, that's all it takes. We want to hear from you. So come on in, guys. It's lonely in here.
Yeah, and ask questions like what Steve P asked about 6 days ago. He said, how to get out of the Thor mistake. I mean, just to answer that real quick, I don't necessarily think it's a mistake. We just really haven't seen Thor in any meaningful game time. I think there's been some times where he's missed some shots on goal, like he just doesn't have that finishing quality Klaus or Denerin has. But these are the kind of questions that we would love to talk about. And like he said,
right,
if you guys want to comment on, you can join us for 5-10 minutes. You can leave us voicemail. If we get creative, even if you want to send us a video, we have an email as well.
Yep. All right. So we're at home next week. So we're going to be watching, having fun, go city, be loud, make that place just red. Make that little supporter section for Chicago feel even smaller than it is. Let's go downtown. Let's get loud. Go city. Go Battlehawks. Baseball guys that don't want to. Yeah, go baseball guys that don't want to win, but cheap tickets are fun too. So one thing before we go, Belleville, the NPSL has a team. It's EHTAR, EHTAR, and they play their first official game this season next week at home. And they're over at Althoff Catholic High School there in Belleville. So they had a friendly yesterday that I hope to God it got rained out, or some of those players are still probably floating away. It started right at 5 o'clock as we were headed to the supporter party, but it was a horrible rain. So I'm hoping it got rained out, but go support that team. It's an NPSL team that's in that. They're tier 1 of the professional soccer in the United States. And those are guys that could climb up the ladder. And so these are all guys playing for a chance to make it to say Next Pro or the USL or the USL Champions League. And it's it's $10 tickets. So if you're upset you can't make it to city, go support a very local team and support the St. Louis team. There's a St. Louis Athletic Club in NPSL as well. So if you're on that side of the river, go support those guys. So it's not just MLS. Go support your other professional soccer that's in town. So it's so cool being a soccer fan in St. Louis right now. So, all right, that's all I got.
Okay, well, on that note, go City. We'll see you next time.
All right, all for City, baby.